The sun began to rise, casting a golden hue over the red brick houses of the small American town of Glenwood, where life seemed to move as gently as the morning breeze. On a quiet street corner sat a modest bakery named Taste of Memories, a place that held the heart of the town and the memories of its owner, Mr. Thomas. Thomas, 55 years old, was a stern-looking man whose outer appearance masked a heart burdened by grief. Once a cheerful and passionate baker, he had become withdrawn after the passing of his beloved wife. Every day, he meticulously baked bread, but each loaf felt like a lifeline to the past rather than a step toward the future. That crisp winter morning, as Thomas arranged freshly baked loaves in the shop window, his eyes caught a little girl staring from the other side of the glass. The girl, Sophie, was around 10 years old, with large, bright eyes that glimmered with hunger and yearning. Her thin frame was wrapped in an old, threadbare coat, and her small, bare feet trembled against the freezing pavement. Inside the bakery, Thomas hesitated. The bakery's rules were clear: no free bread. But the image of Sophie tugged at his heart. His late wife's words echoed in his mind. Bread doesn't just feed the body, kindness feeds the soul. With a quiet determination, Thomas stepped outside and placed a warm loaf of bread into Sophie's tiny hands. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. At that moment, the bakery's manager, Mr. Andrew, an exacting man focused on profits, stepped out and witnessed the scene. His expression was stern, and though he said nothing, his disapproval was clear. Sophie, now nervous, clutched the bread and darted away into the narrow streets. The next day, Sophie returned. This time, instead of just gazing at the bread, she began picking up fallen leaves outside the bakery, as if trying to repay the kindness shown to her. Thomas, watching from the shop, felt his heart soften. He invited Sophie inside, offering her another loaf. Through brief conversations, Thomas learned that Sophie lived with her grandmother, Mrs. Sarah, in a dilapidated house on the outskirts of town. Mrs. Sarah, now 65, had once been a skilled baker, but had left the trade after a series of personal tragedies. Feeling compelled to help, Thomas visited their home one evening, carrying a basket of bread. He was surprised to find that Mrs. Sarah was someone he had known long ago, a former colleague from his younger days. She had worked in a renowned bakery in the city before her life took a turn for the worse. Thomas urged Mrs. Sarah to return to baking, suggesting she join him at the bakery. At first, she declined, feeling too old and weary. But Sophie's hopeful gaze eventually swayed her. When she finally agreed, her return brought new life to the bakery. Customers flocked to taste the bread made from her traditional recipes, reviving the shop's once dwindling fortunes. However, this renewed success attracted unwanted attention. Thomas's estranged brother, James, returned to Glenwood with a proposal to buy the bakery and replace it with a modern shopping center. For James, business was about numbers and profits. For Thomas, the bakery was a legacy, a symbol of love, and a pillar of the community. Thomas's outright refusal ignited a bitter rivalry. James resorted to underhanded tactics, spreading rumors about the bakery's financial struggles and even sending inspectors to find faults. He lobbied the townspeople, promising jobs and prosperity through his proposed shopping center. The pressure mounted and Thomas began to waver. But he wasn't alone. Mrs. Sarah, with her wisdom and calm demeanor, became his confidant. Sophie, though just a child, brought joy and hope to the bakery with her infectious optimism and eagerness to help. One day, a young journalist named Madison arrived in town, intrigued by the story of the bakery. She decided to write an article about its history, its role in the community, and the challenges it faced. Her piece highlighted the legacy of Mrs. Sarah, the kindness of Thomas, and the transformation of little Sophie. It resonated deeply with readers and brought customers from far and wide to the bakery. Madison's curiosity, however, led her to uncover a startling secret. Sophie was not just any orphaned child. She was, in fact, Thomas's granddaughter, the child of a daughter he had lost touch with many years ago. When Madison revealed this to Thomas, he was overwhelmed. The revelation brought a mix of pain and joy, but it strengthened his resolve. He officially adopted Sophie, welcoming her into his family and making her an inseparable part of both his life and the bakery's future. The day of the bakery's grand reopening arrived with great anticipation. The air was filled with the aroma of freshly baked bread, now made with Mrs. Sarah's cherished recipes and Sophie's creative twists. The shop was bustling, with a line of eager customers that stretched down the street. Thomas looked around, his heart swelling with pride. He saw Sophie, now a confident and curious apprentice, helping serve customers and even experimenting with her own pastry ideas. Mrs. Sarah, in her element, worked tirelessly alongside Manuel, the bakery's loyal assistant. The Taste of Memories bakery had truly become a hub of joy and warmth. Meanwhile, James, having failed to take over the bakery, left Glenwood quietly. His departure was a reminder of what Thomas had fought to protect. Not just a business, but a piece of the town's heart. As the sun set on that momentous day, Thomas knelt beside Sophie and said, "We've built something beautiful here. Not just bread, but memories and connections. This bakery is our home." Sophie smiled and replied, "And I'll help keep it alive no matter what." The story of the Taste of Memories bakery is a testament to how small acts of kindness can ripple outward, transforming lives and communities. It reminds us that traditions, once nurtured, can withstand the test of time and adversity. If you've been inspired by this story, don't forget to subscribe to Life Stories 365 for more heartwarming tales of compassion, perseverance, and the triumph of the human spirit. Together, we can continue to spread messages of hope and love.